Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's hearing. Now, by way of a change, today we're going to hear from three of the control room officers whose names we've seen used quite a lot in the documents, but from whom we haven't yet heard. Is that right, Mr. Millett?
Mr. Chairman, it is. Good morning.
Yes, thank you.
I'm going to start by calling Control Room Officer Yvonne Adams, please.
23.
Please repeat after me. I do solemnly, sincerely and truly
I do solemnly, sincerely and truly
declare and affirm that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Very good. Thank you very much. Do sit down and make yourself comfortable.
Thank
All right? Yes, Mr. Millett.
Good morning, Miss Adams.
you. Good morning.
Can I ask you, please, to give the Chairman your full name?
Yvonne Patricia Adams.
Thank you.
Now, I'm going to start by thanking you very much for coming today and assisting the inquiry with its investigations. We're extremely grateful to you for coming. My questions are intended to be short and simple, but if they don't work out that way, please tell me and I will ask the question either again or put it in a different way.
Okay.
We're going to be covering the events of the night in some detail this morning. If at any time you need a break, then we can take a break. All you have to do is just indicate and we can stop. The aim is to sit and take evidence for no more than an hour, but if that's too long, again, tell me and we can take it in shorter pieces.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Now, can I start by asking you please to look at your witness statement that you gave to the Metropolitan Police last year. What I'm going to show you will appear on the screen on the desk in front of you, or if you want to use the screen at the back of the room, you can do that as well. Can the witness please first be shown MET quadruple 07762? Now that is a witness statement with your name on it, dated the 11th of October 2017, given to the Metropolitan Police. Is that your statement?
Yes.
Have you had an opportunity to read it recently?
Yes.
Can you confirm that its contents are true?
Yes.
Thank you. Now I'm going to begin my questions with asking you something about your role and experience in the LFB. You are currently a control room officer
Yes.
employed by the LFB.
Yes.
And I think it's right that you've been in that position for over 45 years.
Yes.
So you started in 1972.
That's it, yeah.
Now, following your initial employment in 1972, Ms. Adams, and over that 45-year period, did you receive regular training on call management?
Not regular, but I've received training, yes.
Right. Not regular. When was the last training that you received prior to the night of the fire in June 2017?
Do you mean on just general call management or FSG?
But let's start with general call management.
I can't remember.
Right. What about FSG?
My training was 2016, and there was 2 sessions in 2012, and I did some workshops with the command unit. But that was for their training, not us.
That was for their training?
Participated, yes.
Right. Just focusing on the 2016 training, can you just tell us what that involved, please?
To be honest, I can't really remember. I think it was just generally going over the FSG guidance and just our general procedures on it.
Right. Were you shown and given help understanding policy 539, emergency call management?
Yeah, we would have just gone over general FSG guidance.
Right.
I can't remember it specifically.
Okay. Was it based on documents, or was there any role play involved?
I know we did do role play, but I can't remember which one that was. It might have been in the 2012, but I honestly can't remember.
Right. Did you get training on policy 790? Do you know something called policy 790?
Yeah.
FSG,
yeah.
Fire Survival Guidance.
Yes.
And we'll come to look at that policy shortly.
Okay.
Before the Grenfell Tower fire, did you get any training or other kinds of education on matters arising or lessons learnt from the Lakanal house fire, which happened in 2009?
We changed our procedure slightly in the questions we asked. So I remember that FSG guidance lesson.
Right.
And we changed our attendance to FSG calls.
You changed your attendance to FSG calls. Can you
Yeah,
just explain what you mean?
Well, prior to that, we didn't send specific appliances to deal with FSG calls, and now we do.
Oh, I see. So,
So we send a command unit, station manager,
right.
and
This is
pumping
about
appliance for
resourcing.
support. Yeah, it's about resourcing and who we're going to contact on arrival
Yeah.
when they get there, passing the calls to.
Okay. Did you get training in 2016 or in 2012 on how to handle multiple FSG calls? In other words, what happens when the control room starts to receive more than one?
Not in our training that I remember, just when I did the workshops with the command unit.
And when did you do the workshops with the command unit?
Sorry, I can't remember those dates, sorry.
Okay.
And I've done 2 of them, but I can't remember the dates. Sorry.
Okay. Was it long before the Grenfell Tower fire, do you think?
Not that long, I don't think. Maybe a year before or so.
I see. And the training you did with the command unit, did that involve multiple FSG calls?
It did, yeah.
How many? Do you remember?
Maybe 6 at the most.
6
Maybe
at
not
the
that
most.
many.
Right. Do you remember being trained on communications to and from the command unit in relation to those FSG calls?
It was looking at various ways, because normally we pass our FSG calls by radio, but on this occasion we was phoning them. The person I was doing the training with, Peter May, he was passing the command unit the FSG calls by phone.
By phone, right. Was that an admin line or was that mobile?
It was one of our admin lines.
Admin line,
Yeah.
right.
It was all done at the lock where we work at Merton.
Right. And during that training, did somebody play the role, like an actor or something like that, of a fire survival guidance caller?
I was doing the radio. I don't think anyone was. I think we was just passing the calls in, writing it down, and then passing it to command unit.
Right. So just to focus a bit more, was this training on communications between the control room and the command unit, rather than handling the call coming from the caller?
It was specifically for the command unit's benefit, and we was just participating in the workshop.
Okay.
So for them to learn what to do at their end more than us.
I see. And do you remember, and I mean maybe because it wasn't directed at you, you can't, but see if you can help me. Do you remember what the lesson that the command unit was supposed to learn from that training was?
You'd have to ask them.
Okay, I think I have. All right. Now, have you ever had any specific training on fires in high-rise residential buildings?
Don't think specific, no.
Would it follow that you've also not had training in how to go about advising lots of callers to evacuate a high-rise residential building?
No.
No?
No.
Not at all in 45 years?
It never happened before. It's just unprecedented.
Are you trained on what to do where the caller tells you that the exit route is smoke-logged?
Just how to keep people safe generally. I mean, if they're telling us the exit is smoke logged, we'd try and keep them, if they're in their flat, we'd say, stay where you are and we'll come to you.
Okay.
Stop the smoke coming in.
Okay, we'll come back to that
Okay.
in a moment. In your experience, your long experience as a control room officer, have you ever experienced a fire in a high-rise residential block involving multiple FSG calls?
We've had fires in high rises, and we've had several FSG calls going, but nothing on the scale of Grenfell.
No. So, breaking that down a bit then, in your experience, prior to the night of the Grenfell Tower fire, had you given FSG advice to a caller?
In a high rise or just generally?
Well, let's start with any caller.
Yeah, over the years, there has been occasions, yes.
Right. No,
Not many, but there has been occasions.
Right, not many. I mean, I know it's difficult.
I know, it's hard to
counting
say.
back over 45 years. I'm sorry to keep saying 45 years, but it's an impressive period of time. Can count the number of FSG calls from any building that you've had to handle?
Maybe, I don't know, maybe up to 10 maybe.
Really? And have you ever experienced being in a control room, or the control room, I should say, where there were multiple FSG calls coming from a single incident?
Yeah, I do remember one occasion when we was taking multiple calls.
Which was that?
In a high-rise. It was Fredwick Tower in Leighton.
Fredwick?
But I was Fredwick Tower. But
In
I was
Leighton?
radio operator at the time, but the calls were going on around the room.
And when was that?
Oh, goodness, I can't remember. Sorry, I can't remember the date. It was... sorry, I don't know.
Let's try and get the decade. Was it?
Well, it was in the 20s.
Right.
But I honestly can't remember. I'd just be guessing. Maybe 5-6 years ago.
Right, I'm just trying to work out, was it before or after
It was after
Lakanal?
Lakanal.
It was after Lakanal?
Yeah,
okay.
after Lakanal.
To the best of your recollection, did the lessons that you'd learned from Lakanal help handle, or help the control room handle, the Fredwick Tower fire?
I don't know. I wasn't on duty for Lakanal, so...
Right, I see. Okay.
But I couldn't say.
Right. Now, I want to turn to explore briefly with you your understanding and application of what we've come to call the stay put policy. So I'm using that as a shorthand, perhaps for a number of different ideas. First, can you just tell us what you understood as at June 2017 by the stay put policy?
Well, if they're not being affected by the fire, smoke, heat, that they would stay where they were, and we would make a note of where they're calling from, flat number, if we're talking about high-rise, flat numbers, their floors, how many people, and we would relay that information to the fire ground, and the crew would go and get them or talk to them if they're safe.
Now, can I ask you then to turn to page 2 of your witness statement? And if you go there, you'll see on the screen the third paragraph, and you describe FSG at the start of that paragraph. We'll come back to that. Halfway through the paragraph, or just a bit below it, you say, national advice for FSG calls. We've put it up in yellow highlight for you. National advice for FSG calls in high-rise buildings is to stay put and await rescue, blocking any smoke with towels alongside reassurance. A CRO would usually stay on the phone to the caller until rescued.
Yes.
Now, you also say earlier in the paragraph, I just want to show this to you, that a call becomes FSG, this is the second sentence, a call becomes FSG when a caller is unable to get out of a building or house due to a fire or smoke. Now, I just want to see if I can pin this down a bit more. Are you saying that you would give stay put advice to someone who is trapped and wouldn't leave, or couldn't leave?
Depends on the call. I mean, if they can't get out, then you'd do everything to try and make them safe.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would just depend on the call.
So let me ask the question this way. Would there be any point in giving what you understand as stay put advice to somebody who is trapped and can't do anything other than stay put?
Sorry, say that again, sorry.
Yeah. Is there any... Would you ever give stay put advice, as you understand it, to someone who tells you that they're trapped?
Well, they'd have to stay there, wouldn't they, if
Exactly.
they're trapped? I mean, what else can they do? And then you can just hope you can keep them safe.
Yeah. So, moving on then, when you receive a call for somebody who says they're trapped, or they can't leave, or they've tried to leave and they can't, in your experience, would you, or your understanding of the policy, would you immediately proceed to give them FSG advice, or would you first try to establish, to your satisfaction, whether there may be some way of leaving the building?
I think you'd maybe go down that route generally, if it was a house fire, because there may be other alternatives of ways of getting out that they've not thought of.
Right.
Maybe through a window, that flat roof, could be some other way of escaping that they've not thought of. But in a high-rise building, they don't have many alternatives, do they?
So, do I take it from that when the caller says, I'm trapped or I'm stuck, I can't leave, do you take them at face value and proceed straight to FSG, or do you...
You'd ask them why they can't leave, generally.
Right.
That would
Would
be
you-
your first question, normally.
Right.
Yeah.
How hard would you push them in giving you detailed information about why they can't leave, so as to be able to continue to advise them?
That would be so dependent on the caller, whether they're listening to you, whether there's a language problem, all sorts of things.
Right.
It's not a black and white, it's a grey area. But you just do your best to try and make yourself clear.
When you're making an assessment of whether they can't leave or can leave, do you rely only on the information that the caller is giving you, or do you also, or might you also rely on information that you were getting back from the fireground, if you had any?
Probably mainly the caller. And I mean, the only information we get back from the fireground normally is informative messages.
Right.
Don't specifically get many messages back telling us what's happening at the incident.
How helpful would informative messages be in the case of a high-rise fire in assisting you in assessing whether or not the caller can safely leave?
It's so difficult to say. It probably would help. I mean, you'd still be asking the same questions, because until you get told otherwise, all you can do is try and keep them safe. And if the smoke's coming under their front door, you know there's smoke on the other side, or a fire, so you can't send people out into those conditions.
Okay, let's look at the policy, and I'm going to start with policy 539.
Okay.
If we can please have that. That's tab 3 of our policies bundle, and this is the policy called Emergency Call Management, and it's there on the screen, Ms. Adams, for you. Current as at March 2014, and issued in November 2007 originally. And can I ask you please to go to Appendix 3 on page 16? I ought to start by asking you, are you familiar with this policy generally?
Yes.
And are you familiar in general terms with Appendix 3, which is entitled Fire Survival Guidance?
Yes.
Now, if you look at the third paragraph, it says, Brigade Control advise callers to get out and stay out, and that's in inverted commas. However, if a call is received from a high-rise building where fire, heat and smoke are not affecting the caller, LFB would advise that, and then you've got a paragraph underneath that. You are usually safest to remain in your premises unless affected by fire, heat or smoke. If the situation changes, you should leave your premises and dial 999 if you need further assistance. Now, just pausing there, does that sentence accord with your understanding of the stay put policy, as we've called it?
Yes.
Okay, so would it be right to say it's stay put unless?
Yes.
Now, just focusing on the word affecting in the first of those paragraphs we looked at, and then affected in the second, affected by fire, heat or smoke. What information would you, as a control room officer, use to make your assessment as to whether premises are affected by fire, heat or smoke?
Just information from the caller, what they're telling you.
And what kind of information would that be?
Where the smoke is, if it's coming from outside the front door.
So this is this affected inside the flat, or more generally?
All of it, really. I mean,
Right.
just all dependent on what they're telling you.
Okay. Would somebody be affected by fire, heat or smoke if they could smell smoke but couldn't see it? Or weren't
No,
being,
I don't
weren't
think
coughing?
necessarily, no.
Right.
You could just smell it, no, not
Right.
necessarily.
Would somebody be affected by fire, heat or smoke if their flat wasn't on fire, but they could see the fire approaching?
I suppose you could say they were being affected by it, but where would the fire be coming through their windows? Do you mean, or just outside their window? Just
Either way.
yeah. I mean, then they are being affected by the fire.
Right. And again, and it's a question I asked before, but when you make your assessment of whether a caller is affected by fire, heat or smoke, would you rely solely on what the caller was telling you, or would you also look to rely on information coming to you from the incident ground?
Well, it would be both if you got information coming back.
Yeah. Would you normally, and I know you haven't over the years done that many FSG calls,
Yeah.
but in that experience that you can recall, would you find the information coming from informative messages useful?
If it's just a normal FSG call and someone's trapped in their house, you normally hear the firefighters anyway. You just hear them coming,
I see.
and then you hear them talking to the person, and then the person, they just put the phone down. They don't even say goodbye to you normally because they've been rescued.
Yes.
So you know they're safe.
Yes. Coming back to a question we looked at earlier, which I don't think I completely covered with you. In your experience, you've given us a rough number of
Yeah.
the FSG calls you've covered during your experience.
Yes.
How many of those were from residential high-rise blocks?
I can't actually remember any being in high-rise.
Now, can I turn to your witness statement again? We'll come back to the policy shortly. If you go back to page 2 of your witness statement, Miss Adams, you say in paragraph 2, or I suppose paragraph 3 on that page, which starts, a call may sometimes become. So it's the third paragraph down, or the second substantive paragraph. A call may sometimes become a fire survival guidance call, or FSG, in short. And then you say a call becomes FSG when a caller is unable to get out of a building or house due to a fire or smoke. We looked at that a minute ago. Can I just clarify something with you? Keep that on the screen. It will be kept on the screen for you. And I'm going to ask you now to look at policy 790. That's LFB quadruple 01257, which we've got in our policies bundle at tab 5. And that's the first page of it, issued as at February 2012 and reviewed as current April 2014. First, Ms. Adams, are you familiar with this policy?
Yes.
Yes. Now, if we turn in that policy, first of all, to page 2 and look at paragraph 2.1, under the title Fire Survival Guidance Call Definition, it says, and we can expand that for you, there it is, an FSG call is a call received into control where the caller believes that they are unable to leave their premises due to the effects of fire, and where, and this is in bold, where the control officer remains on the line providing appropriate advice. Now, just pausing there in that paragraph, and comparing that with what you say in your statement, at the beginning, which we can also highlight, a call becomes FSG when the caller is unable to get out. I'm interested in whether there's a difference between being unable and the caller believing that they're unable. And the question is, on your understanding of when a call becomes an FSG call, is it when the caller believes that they're unable to leave, or is it when you've assessed they can't leave, and in your judgment they can't leave?
It would all be down to the caller. So if they believe they can't leave, then I have to believe them that they can't
I follow.
leave.
So does that mean that you take them at face value and you don't say to them, well, actually, although you say you can't leave, let's test that a bit? Have you looked outside your front door? Have you tried an open window?
Yeah, you would do that.
You would do that?
And you would, as I say, on a normal, not a high-rise call,
Yes.
you would pursue other avenues of why they can't leave.
Right. But I think because you never handle an FSG call from a high-rise, perhaps your experience doesn't help us.
Yeah, maybe.
Right. Now, while we're on the same page of the policy, page 2, can I ask you please to look at paragraph 4, prioritising calls. paragraph 4.1, and if we can have that expanded, please, that would be helpful. It says, occasionally, Control receives multiple FSGs at an incident. All FSGs received by Control are treated with the same level of urgency. However, in certain circumstances, the officer in charge of Control may direct call handlers to terminate a call to answer another. Before the night of Grenfell Tower, Miss Adams, is that something you'd ever experienced?
Never.
Have you ever in your career been directed to terminate an FSG call in order to answer another?
No.
Because I think the next question I can predict the answer to, but do you know what the circumstances would be where the officer in charge may tell you to stop an FSG call to handle another?
Just an overwhelming amount of calls coming into the Control.
Yeah. But you've never had the experience before Grenfell of that?
Never, no.
Okay. Now, can I ask you to turn the page, please, within the policy to paragraph 5.5. If we can please have that highlighted there. This says, Control will attempt to gather all the information on the Control Information Form, see Appendix 2, and relay this information to the incident as and when it becomes available. And then, Ms. Adams, we can see a long list of bullet points under that, which are details of information, number of flat house, number of persons involved, etc. And Appendix 2, just so you know what it is, that is... if we can just move on to that. I think it's page 10. Page 8. I'm so sorry, page 8 of this exhibit. Appendix 2, Control Information Form. Is that form something you're familiar with?
I think I've seen it, but we don't use it.
You don't use it?
No.
Have you ever used this form in the control room in your experience?
No.
No, right. Now, going back to the detailed information at paragraph 5.5 we were just on, looking at that list of bullet point details, would you normally expect to gather this information during an FSG call?
Yes.
You would?
Yeah.
In your experience of FSG calls, is it normally possible to get all of this information from the caller?
Again, it's all dependent on the caller. You just don't know until you're taking that call.
Yeah.
Even if they're listening to you, if they're in a panic or they're talking to other people with them. So you would try your best to get that information.
Right. Do you, and again, it's difficult because I know your experience of these is limited, even though you've had 45 years of control room experience. But have you ever known a time when you took an FSG call in which you got all of this information?
I can't remember. Hopefully I've got most of it.
Right.
But I can't say I've got all of it.
Right. Perhaps the clue is in the word attempt at the beginning. So you've attempted but never perhaps always succeeded. Is that right?
Yeah. And what's relevant at the time. It's just, you would hopefully get all that.
Right. And turning then back in the policy, please, to the bottom of the previous page, page 2, paragraph 5, information transfer to incident. If we could just have that expanded. You can see at the foot of that page of that policy, paragraph 5.1 says, as soon as control has confirmed that an FSG call is in progress, they will contact the incident ground and start to pass over the initial details. At this stage, it is likely to be basic information relating to the number of persons involved and their location within the property. Now, looking at that, in your experience, what would the usual method of passing that information over to the incident ground be?
It could be a service request, or you could, because you normally have someone, if you was taking the call, maybe your supervisor or a colleague would come and listen to the call with you. So if they was close to the radio operator, they could even just go over to the radio operator and say to them, tell them they're in the back room. They get there as quick as possible,
Right.
the information to the ground. And you'd probably back it up with a service request.
So would that be you making the service request, or you telling the radio
It could be
operator?
me, or it could be a colleague. It would all depend on your staffing levels and what the manning was at the time, how many people were free to assist you with that call.
Yeah, I see. So it would. I think what you're telling us is that it would depend.
It very much so depend on your staffing levels.
So would there be? Is this right? Would there be two methods of communicating that? First of all, the radio operator, and secondly, the service request.
It could be, because to me it's always the quickest way to get the information to the ground.
Right.
So, it may be if you can speak to the radio operator, just say, quickly tell them that they're in such and such a room.
Right.
And then you could do the niceties of the log afterwards.
When if you were to do a service request,
Yes.
what would happen to it? It would come up on the screen in the control room.
Yeah.
Would it also come up on a screen somewhere on the incident ground?
No.
No.
No. It just goes in on our log in the control.
It goes into your log.
Yeah.
So it would have to be actioned by somebody in the
Yeah,
control
it would
room.
be
to go
actioned
to
by
this.
the radio operator.
Right. So in fact, the method of communication under 5.1 is the radio operator.
Yeah. Initially, yeah.
Yes. Yes, thank you. Now I'm going to turn, Miss Adams, to the events of the night of the fire itself, if I can.
Okay.
Now, if I can ask you please to go to your witness statement, look at page 3, second paragraph down from the top of the page. You say that you were assigned as a pager officer for the night, working alongside the other control room officers. I started work at 8 p.m. and it was all very normal for the first few hours. Sharon Darby and I had a rest period at around midnight. The CRO staff rotate rest periods throughout the shift. Just picking up a point about pager officer to start with, does that mean that you, at the start of the shift at least, were responsible for ensuring that there were enough correct senior officers present at the incident?
Yeah, that would be my job normally.
Now, I'd like to get an idea of where it was you were sitting in the control room on the night. If I can ask you please to be shown the LFB control room report, which is LFB *0004790, and turn please to page 175. This is a photograph of the Stratford facility and the layout. Can you point out to us where you were sitting, please?
So I'm to the right of the supervisor's desks, just in that corner. In the bank you can't see. So it's that one on the right-hand corner, that little
Right.
bank of...
Would it be possible for you to
Yeah,
get
do
up
you want me
and...
to
I'm
point?
sorry.
Help, thank you.
It would be helpful to point it out.
I'm here.
Oh, you're there?
Yeah.
I see. Where the red dot is hovering.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Who was to your left and right?
To the right was Pam Jones.
Okay.
So it's a bank of 2 positions, and Pam was next to me. And in this bank there was Christine, right at the front of the screen.
So the chair we see there on the right at the bottom of the screen, that's Christine Howson's chair, is it?
Yeah, I think she was either that chair or the other chair.
Okay.
And then the supervisor was at the bank, and I think
Yes.
it was Debbie Rill was closest to me. I think. Can't swear to that. I think it was Debbie.
So you were in very close proximity to Christine Howson and Pam Jones.
Pam Jones I was very close to. Yes, she was next to me.
But Christine Howson looks like
And
she was just opposite.
Yeah, just opposite. Yeah, that's it.
It's quite difficult for us, and there's a reason for me asking this, we'll come to later, but it's quite difficult for us to get a
Yeah.
clear idea of the distance between Christine Howson's chair and your chair. Comparing it with where you're sitting and where the chairman is sitting, are you further or nearer?
So probably to where the chairman's sitting,
Right.
out there. Yeah.
About the same. All right. Now, in his witness statement, Pete Duddy says that he was working notifications, such as when incidents were to go from a 6 to an 8 pump fire, and notifying the senior officers and the press officer. That's what he says. Do you remember him doing that role on the night initially?
No, he was over in the corner, but
Right. And how would your two roles work together?
he does the more. My role is the operational officers that go on to the incident. So when the incidents are upgraded with the make-ups, they respond to the paging operator, and then it would be my responsibility to book them onto that incident, to book them status 2 going on.
I see.
And give them information that they require. And then we have a sheet that we work to ensure that you've got the right amount of officers. And also, if they've not responded, you'd be chasing them up, paging them again, or phoning them and saying, have you got the order in? And so you just... And that's for the attendance. And then Peter's role is more the senior officers above that, notification on that level.
I follow.
It's not what the paging operator does.
Okay. So he was on the senior officers and you were on...
Yeah, and I was on the...
Other resources.
Yeah.
I follow.
That's it.
In the position you were operating on the night, would you be able to, or usually take 999 calls as well as being the pager officer?
Yes.
You would. Now, I think you, as you say in your statement, you started to take 999 calls from Grenfell and then moved away from your role as pager officer.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Is that just because of the volume that started to mount up?
Absolutely. I think I spoke to a few officers when they responded, but I didn't get to complete my sheet and check that there was enough officers for the attendance or anything. It just went mad. Yeah.
Now, I think we might be able to put a time on that. If I can take you back in the same document which is the control room report, to page 12, with a time mark of 01:21:24. We believe this is the first call you take, and it's from a female caller reporting the smell of smoke from inside Grenfell Tower. She states that she is from flat 195 on the 22nd floor. To the best of your recollection, was that the first call you took from this incident?
Yes, I believe it was.
We'll come back to that call later. And did you stop your role as pager officer at that point or before that?
I was probably still doing both at that point.
Right.
So I was still taking response from senior officers, but I've just been, depending on the volume of calls, I would have prioritised the calls.
Right. Then we'll come to that prioritisation shortly. But did you then stop your role as pager officer after this call?
It wasn't like stopping my role. It was more just combining the two.
Right.
If I was free to take a paging, an officer responding to paging, I would. Mm-hmm. But if there was, lots of calls waiting to be answered, then I'd probably answer the call.
Did there come a point when you did stop acting as pager officer?
Yeah, I think there was.
Did somebody take over?
They must have just, whoever was in the room that was free to pick the calls up.
Right.
I mean, they were answered, but it wasn't always by me.
Right. Now, at the moment you start to take 999 calls, and we can pin that down to 01:21:24 for you, Miss Adams, do you remember what system was generally in place in the control room for handing information over to the incident ground?
I think still at that time it would be service requests, and if you had any further information.
So you would make
by
a service...
radio, yeah, and it would go to the radio operator.
Yes, I see. So you weren't, is this right, you weren't using pieces of paper at that stage?
Not at that point, no.
Okay. Now, we don't, well, we've got something called a short incident log, which you may be familiar with.
Yeah.
We'll come to look at it in due course, but we don't actually see your initials on the incident log, short incident log, creating service requests to pass over FSG messages.
No, I don't think I created any, actually.
Right, you didn't.
I think that one was like just a duplicate call, because she was just saying there was smoke smell smoke, and I think I told her that we had a fire on the 4th floor, because she was ringing from this 22nd floor. I mean,
Right.
just couldn't comprehend that that's where the fire was.
Okay. No. Well, we'll come back to look at that in due course. But do you know whether you passed this information to the incident ground?
No, I don't think I did, because to me that was just a duplicate call for the incident.
When you say duplicate call, what do you mean?
Just a further call to the call we were attending, and we just duplicate it to the original call.
How did you know it was a duplicate call?
Because of the address she gave me.
Right.
And then you get offered a repeat call by the system. It'll say to you, get a blue flashing light, and then you click on that and it says, do you want to make this a repeat call of the call that you're receiving? And then you just repeat it.
Right.
Say, yes, I do, and then that goes on the log.
Right, I see. Were you aware of passing... were you aware, prior to this call, which you called a duplicate call, that the information about flat 195 on the 22nd floor had already been passed to the incident ground?
I don't know.
Is that,
I believe if that's the first call, then no, it
Right.
couldn't have been.
Because if you didn't pass this message to the incident ground...
No, I didn't.
Is that because you thought it had already been passed to the incident ground?
No, it's because I thought there was just another call to the incident, and it didn't warrant further information being sent to the ground.
What was it
At that
about the
point.
call that you thought warranted not sending information to the incident ground? Just looking at the summary.
Just the fact that it was just a smell of smoke, and that we were in attendance, and we were dealing with the fire on the 4th floor.
Right, I see.
And I don't think there was, I don't know whether the makeups had started coming in by then, but
Right.
just believed that we was dealing with the fire, and it was just the remnants of the smoke going up the building in some way.
I see.
Because we've had calls to dust chutes in the past where, it goes up on all floors and people, are reporting all the smoke, but it's actually just the dust chute chamber that's on fire.
I see.
So,
Do I take it from that you didn't think it would be helpful for the incident ground to know
yeah, I did.
about a report of the smell of smoke?
Yeah.
Even though it was right at the top of the building?
Well, they was there. They could see what was happening, so providing they're in attendance, maybe if they wasn't in attendance, then I might have considered sending them a message, saying we've received a further call to, smell of smoke. But as they was there and dealing with the fire, it didn't seem relevant on that one.
So you thought this was this residual smoke from the fire on the 4th floor?
Yes. Yes. And I'd also say there, bring us back if things change.
Right. Now, at this point, 121, had you heard the make-ups of the pumps to that point?
I can't remember. I remember some of them coming in, but I can't remember all the sequence, all the times.
It's a matter of recollection and impression, I think.
Yeah.
But does that tell us that you don't remember having any particular impression about how the fire was already progressing at this point, 121?
No, I can't recall. Not at that particular time.
Right. So you don't remember that pumps had been made 8 by that point?
No.
Okay. Now, the next thing we see in the report, if we can please turn to page 22, is at 1:29:38. You take a call from a female requesting fire brigade attendance at Ladbroke Grove, Latimer Road. And summary goes on. CRO Adams confirms that this is to Grenfell Tower and explains that the brigade is already in attendance. The caller asks CRO Adams to send more fire engines and states that the whole of the left side of the building is on fire. The caller then corrects herself by stating that the whole of the right side is on fire. CRO Adams advises that 20 fire engines are coming, and the fire service are already in attendance. Now, at that point, it looks as if you were aware that the makeup had reached 20.
Yeah, it does. Yep.
And you also, I think, as you told us before, you were aware that the fire was on the 4th floor. Yes?
Yes.
Yes. And that, to be clear, is that because you had an informative message earlier?
Well, because the original call was on the 4th floor.
I see. Okay. Now, so you know that there had been a make-up to 20 pumps, and the message at 128 that you had also got of persons reported. You knew that as well, I think, did you?
Probably, but I can't remember specifically.
Okay. Well, let's just see if I can I can prompt your memory. If you go, please, to the short incident log. We'll come back to this. Perhaps keep this on the screen and go, please, to the short incident log, MET 000-13830, and turn to page 18. At the very top of the page. That's MET 000-13830, page 18. And Ms. Adams, if I can just ask you to look at the very top of the page, you can see at 1012840, Sharon Darby's created a service request, persons reported, and then at 012847, there's a make-up, persons reported. So you can see that, and then at 129.15, a service request updated, persons reported, and so it goes on. So is it right that by this time you'd heard the make-ups and you'd had a call from the public? Do you think you'd also seen that there was now an official persons reported message coming from the incident ground?
I honestly can't remember.
Okay. Looking at all that information in the round, was it clear to you by this point, 129.38, when you get this call from the member of the public that the right side of the building, the whole of the right side of the building is on fire, that this was a very seriously spreading fire, no longer confined to the 4th floor?
It does seem that way, yes.
You say it seems that way. Do you recall it that way?
Well, yeah, I mean, and sometimes people exaggerate, you know,
Right.
when they give calls. So we still had nothing confirmed. So, and it's someone's vision of a fire.
Right. Do you want to finish?
No, sorry, that's it, yeah.
All right. Do you remember whether you communicated this information that you got from this female caller about the whole of the building being on fire to anybody in the control room?
No, because I think there was a lot of calls coming in, so I think everyone who was taking calls might have been aware, but I didn't pass it on to anyone in particular.
Miss Adams, we've been going for 50 minutes. Are you happy to continue for another 10 minutes, or would you like a break now?
No, 10 minutes is fine.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Then moving from that call we've just been looking at to a call which you took where somebody was saying they were actually trapped. Can I ask you to look, please, at the Brigade Control Report, LFB quadruple 04790, that we've been looking at, and turn, please, to page 37. And this is a call at 1:38:18 towards the bottom of that page. We've expanded it there for you. And I'll just show you the summary. CRO Adams takes a call from a female who is shouting loudly and repeatedly stating that she is on the 14th floor in flat 115. She shouts that the fire is coming into the building and asks how she can get downstairs. CRO Adams confirms that the caller is in Grenfell Tower and frequently asks what flat the caller is in, to which the caller responds 14. The caller shouts that she's going to die, and CRO Adams informs her that she will get crews to her. CRO Adams then manages to confirm that the smoke is coming in under the door and windows and advises the caller to block the door and shut the windows The caller is very distressed and says that there's fire coming through the door and states that she feels like jumping. A smoke alarm is audible in the background. And it's a 4-minute, 20-second call. First, do you have an independent recollection of this call?
I do remember it, yes.
You do. Now I'm going to show you the transcript of this call, just to pick up one or two very particular points from it, if I can. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's
You'll be all right with that? Yeah. This is, the transcript is LFB 30321. And you can see that it starts at 013818 by looking at the second group of numbers in the blue line, second from the right. It's 013818. So that's where we get the time from, of 013818, Miss Adams. And if you can go, please, in the call to page 2, first of all, and we can see there that the caller is in the middle of the page saying, 1414, how can I get out of here? And I'm on the 14th floor, tell me what flat you are, 14, 14, 14. I'm sorry, 14 or 13, yes, 14, 14. It goes on like that. And then at page 5, we can see that she tells you, just below halfway down the page, I have a child, I have a child, I have a child, help me. You see that? And then at pages 6 and 7, the bottom of page 6, she tells you there's fire coming. And the top of page 7, you go to page 7, the caller says, there's fire coming from the door, inaudible, I feel like jumping, can anybody come? Now, I've shown you a lot of that. Do you remember taking down these details or recording them in some way while you were hearing them from the caller?
Only on the format that we have come up to record the initial call on. Yeah, just on there. I don't think I recorded it anywhere else.
Could you just explain for us what that format is that comes up?
So when a call comes in, it automatically generates a call collection form, and you type the address in and the details of the call on there. So I would have taken it on that form. Right, and
what would so you'd type in details, would you?
Yeah, the flat 14, Grenfell Tower.
Right. That's the flat number you understood, is it?
Yeah, but I think I got that wrong. I think she was saying something different at the beginning of the call. But I remember she was really screaming.
Right.
It was very hard to understand what she was telling me.
Yes.
So. And I think she misunderstood me when I'm asking her a flat number. Because she's saying 14. I think that was the floor she was on.
Yes. And we can see you pressing for the detail. In terms of recording the details she was giving you, so fire in the flat or coming through the door, the fact that she had a child, were those details that you recorded?
I don't remember. I don't know what I typed on the call, the original call.
If you did record them, how would you go about recording them? Was this on the...
I would have done it on the original call, and maybe, I can't remember what stage we were at, whether he was writing stuff down or... because it was just going mental. So I can't honestly remember whether I wrote that one down or not.
If you typed it into your system on the call collection form, what would then happen to that information?
It would just get logged onto a duplicate call on the repeat call on the system.
Would the radio operator then see that?
No, they wouldn't see that. I'd have to do a service request, which I know I didn't do because I don't think I did any. So, but I'm not sure. I think I tried to establish somewhere if we had flat 14. Because I got the impression she may have called already for some reason, but I don't know why. But,
you say you didn't do a service request. Do you know why you didn't do a service request?
No, not at that point, I don't. I think I was just trying to establish what was going on in the room because it was so much happening and it was just horrendous. So, no, I don't know.
Do you remember whether you passed these specific details about this caller to Alex Norman or somebody else in the control room?
I can't remember. I think I might have said if we got flat 14, but I honestly can't remember.
If you look on in the control room report, to page 52, that's LFB quadruple 04790 at page 52, you can see that at 015049, you make a call on a landline to the mobile phone allocated to Command Unit 8 in order to pass on FSG calls.
Yes.
And then I'll just show you the two you pass on, flat 133 and flat 182. Is there a reason why you didn't pass on the information that you were getting from this call, what you think was floor 14?
I just
flat
had the
14?
impression that we'd had it already and that it had already been passed. But I can't remember specifically.
Right. Well, let me just, one more question before the break, if I can, just see if I can follow that up. If you go back 2 pages, please, in this same document to page 50, at 147.44, you can see that Alex Norman, OM Norman, rings Command Unit 8 and passes over a request for the flats below to be checked. We can see that in that box there, that there is a third item down, floor number 14, but no flat number. And the remarks in the call, OM Norman says she doesn't know the flat number because the caller disappeared. Does that help with your recollection?
I don't know if that's my call or not.
You don't know?
I don't know.
Right. Mr. Chairman, that's a convenient moment in the questions for a break. Is that convenient to you and to the witness? It is.
Good. Well, we'll have a short break now, Ms. Adams. Please don't talk to anyone about your evidence while you're out of the room. And we'll resume at 11:10. If you'd like to go with the usher, she'll look after you. Good. 11:10, please. All right. Ready to carry on?
Yes, thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Miller.
Ms. Adams, thank you very much for coming back to us. Can I just go back to a call we looked at earlier this morning, which you'd taken from a member of the public outside the building,
Yes.
who told you that the whole of the left side and then, in fact, the whole of the right side of the building was on fire. Just to refocus the document, it's the control room report, LFB quadruple 04790, page 22. This is at 1:29:38. My question, and we'll wait for it to come back. There it is on the screen, 3 entries up from the bottom. My question about that is, when the caller said to you that the whole of the left side and the whole of the right side is on fire, did you actually think that she was exaggerating, or did you think she was being serious?
It's hard to say now what I thought at the time. And it could be, I mean, we've had scaffolding up buildings before, and it's
Right.
going up the whole of the side of the building. So it could be all sorts of reasons. I didn't imagine that it really was the whole building that was alight,
Right.
I think, at that time. But I can't say 'cause
I see.
what I was thinking at that time.
I'm getting the impression from what you've said that actually you treated what you were being told with a dose of scepticism. You know, you didn't really
Maybe.
believe what she was saying.
And also that there were so many calls probably started coming in, and we're on the scene dealing with it, so, you know, there wasn't much I could do with that information that I thought would assist in any way.
No.
Sort of telling them on the ground because they're there.
What I'm really trying to get at is that when you get this call and are told the whole side of the building, left or right, it doesn't matter, is on fire,
Yeah.
combined with the number of calls that you've been seeing coming in, my question really is, why did you treat that with scepticism, or some degree of scepticism? Why didn't you take it at face value?
I don't. It's hard to say now, but yeah. And by that time, you're thinking, "What the hell is going on there?"
Right.
You know, I mean, we were all sort of thinking, "What's happening?" You know, like
Yeah.
we're all sitting there bewildered at all these calls coming in.
Bewildered. Okay. Now, moving forward then in the timeline, can I ask you to move forward also in this document to page 48 to 49, bottom of 48, top of page 49. This is a call at 1:46:18 you take from the MPS control room about a caller in flat 133 on the 16th floor. And you can just see what is said there. The MPS CRO asks if there's any advice they can give callers, and explains that she has a caller that's stuck on the 16th floor who is very distressed. The MPS operator asks if she can set up a conference call between the individual and CRO Adams. CRO Adams agrees and provides advice about blocking doors and closing windows. She asks what flat the caller is in, and he replies that he is in flat 133. CRO Adams tells the caller to call back if it gets worse, and the MPS take the call back, releasing CRO Adams from the call, 2 minutes 31 seconds. Now, just focusing on some points of detail there. You're asked in the call to set up a conference call. Is that something that you'd done before?
Never.
Right. Did you know what they wanted you to do?
Well, just presumably to talk to the caller, but yeah, I was
Right.
surprised.
Is that what you expected the police control room to do, if they received call from people
No.
trapped in the building?
No, never seen it before.
Right.
Had dealings with that before.
Right.
I didn't
No.
even know it was possible, so...
Right. But you did manage to speak to the caller.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
I'm just going to show you the transcript and ask you one or two questions about it, which we don't get from this summary. It's the LFB 50326. And we can see the time of the call, second group of numbers from the right in blue, 14618. And it starts on page 2. Hello, Fire Brigade, caller 1. Hi, the Fire Brigade, it's the Met Police here. And it goes on, regarding your fire that you've got on the Grenfell Tower at the moment, I've got someone stuck on the kitchen floor. We've got nothing on your camp query as to what advice to give people. Is there anything that you're giving? Because, inaudible, stressing out like mad, inaudible. and then you talk about being on the phone and mediating a conference call, and you say, yeah, no problem. So clearly it wasn't a problem, even if you hadn't come across it before. But I'm just interested in what's being said to you by the caller at the beginning of the call, the Metropolitan Police caller, in that part I've just read out. When he or she said, we've got nothing on your camp as to what advice to give people, did you know what they meant?
No, but I presume they don't have fire survival guidance information. I don't know what camp is.
No, I didn't quite hear, and I can't see on the transcript what you just said. Could you repeat your answer, please?
I don't know what camp means. I presume they've got no guidance on FSG calls.
Right. Did you expect the Metropolitan Police to know what to advise callers who say they're trapped?
No.
Right.
Why would they? They're a different service.
Why would they? They're a different service. Did you tell any of your supervisors that you had taken a call from the Metropolitan Police?
No. I think everyone was too busy to pass individual calls, information.
Okay. Did it occur to you as important at the time that the Metropolitan Police were taking 999 calls from people trapped in the building, but didn't know what advice to give them?
No, not at the time, because I didn't know where our calls were going to. So this may have been a one-off,
Right.
but I presume they was pinging everywhere because we couldn't cope with them all. So.
Okay. Did you have any thoughts about whether it would have helped Alex Norman or Debbie Riel to know that other emergency services were taking calls from people stuck in the building and didn't have the right advice to hand to give them, or didn't know what
they
advice to
may
give
have
them?
already been aware of that. I mean, I don't know.
Right. You don't know. Just to close this off, this call, if you go to your statement, you see at the top of page 4, if we can go to that, that you say that you took a call from a man on the 20th floor who was saying that there was smoke coming into his flat. This was shortly after the initial call, and I don't think it was a fire survival guidance call. I told him that he would be okay because the fire was on the 4th floor at that point. I hadn't received any new information or updates, so assumed that that was still the case, and thought, how could he be affected on the 20th floor? I gave him advice to put towels under the doors and try to get some fresh air to help prevent the smoke from coming in before the call ended. The fire survival guidance calls then began to come in, which all our CROs were dealing with. I just want to see if we can pin down that call and link the points of information. I don't think you did actually take a call from a man on the 20th floor at any point in the night.
I think that was the lady that called. I think that was the original call that I was referring to, and I obviously couldn't remember it correctly.
You think that was the original call?
I think so.
I see. Okay. Because I was just going to ask you whether it might be this call where you give him advice to try and block up the smoke and stay where you are, and tell him that you're dealing with a fire on the 4th floor. But that's not this call, you don't think? Is that right?
I really can't remember. It was so long ago I did the statement, I can't remember what call I was referring to. It may possibly have been that first call.
Okay.
And I got the sex wrong. Yeah.
Okay. Now, staying with this call and looking, if we can go back to the transcript, please, LFB 50326. At the bottom of the second page, page 2, you are speaking to the operator, and the operator is you, and caller 1 is the Met control room, and 3/4 of the way down the page, caller 1, that's the Met control room, says, all right, lovely, bear with me 2 seconds, I'm just going to pop Inaudible now. I know your phone's probably crazy, Inaudible, and you say, oh, it's manic. There's so many people stuck in their flats. And then you get put onto the caller at the top of page 3, and you give advice. And then at the top of page 4, if you can just be shown that, please, you say, okay, if it gets worse, ring us back, but just try and stop the smoke coming in and just stay where you are for now. But we are dealing with a fire on the 4th floor, and then caller 2, which is the caller in the flat, on the 4th floor, okay. And then you say, yeah, on the 4th floor, so just try and keep your windows closed and put something against the bottom of the door to stop the smoke coming in. And if it gets worse, dial 999 and ask for the fire brigade. I just wanted to ask you about why you were saying that the fire was on the 4th floor. And at this stage, just summarising the information, and when I say at this stage, I mean at the time of this call, which was at 01:46, you'd already been told the building was on fire all the way up one side by a caller outside. You'd had the woman on the 14th floor at 1:38 saying that she had fire through her front door. At this point, did you realise that the fire had climbed above the 4th floor?
Well, by this point, I think we knew it was not contained on the 4th floor, so that's probably the wrong information to give this caller. But I'm just probably saying where the original fire started,
Yes.
but without having any other information as to where the fire was, other than what you just said. It was just, yeah. And also at that time, we still was anticipating that the firefights was going to get to them. You know, we're just advising people to stay where they are, and we'll go to them.
Yeah. And we can see what you say, that you're telling the caller that the fire was on the 4th floor. My question really is, why were you giving the caller that information when you had other information which would suggest that the fire had spread significantly above the 4th floor?
I can't say why I said that at the time.
Right.
Just maybe that's what I definitely knew at that time.
Right.
And we had no clarification at that point as to where the actual fire was spreading to, other than what's coming in from the callers.
Right.
But nothing specific from the ground itself.
Now, we can see from this transcript that you didn't explore with the caller whether the caller and his wife could leave their flat and exit the building. Do you think that's something that you could have done?
It's difficult to say, because you wouldn't want to advise people, especially if there's smoke outside, to go out into the smoke. And also, we still didn't at that point have information as to quite what was going on in that building. So, and it's high rise. You're usually safe in your flat, but
Can I just
no.
go? I'm so sorry. I keep cutting across your
That's
answer.
all right.
Okay. Can I ask you to look at page 3
Okay.
of this transcript? At the beginning of your conversation with the caller, he tells you in the first third of the page, you ask him, okay, then where's the smoke coming from? Under the door, the front door? Caller says, under the door, the front door. Now, at that stage, to your way of thinking, was the caller affected by smoke?
Only that it's coming under the door, so he wants to protect himself from that
Yeah.
smoke and try and stop it coming in. So, yeah, but without hearing all the call and everything, it's hard to say from this transcript what I was thinking.
Is there a reason why, having been told that the smoke was coming into the flat under the front door, you didn't then explore with him whether he could get out, which was the next thing that happens? If you're affected by fire or smoke, you...
Maybe because he's in a high rise, I'm thinking there's only going to be one door.
Right. I see. So is that an assumption that you made?
Probably, yeah.
So you didn't think there was a point in exploring the exit route because it was a high rise?
Maybe. I can't really say this at this point, but that may be a reason.
Right. Well, I don't want to put ideas in your head or words in your mouth, but I'm just trying to get a feel for why you didn't explore with the caller why there wasn't a safe exit route.
Well, I can't imagine they'd have a back door on the 13th floor. It would only be a front door that they'd be gain access to. So yeah, I was probably thinking on that lines.
Did you think he was trapped at this stage?
Not necessarily. I think just the smoke was coming in, and he needed to protect himself from the smoke.
If you didn't necessarily think he was trapped, then the question again I have to ask is, well, if he wasn't necessarily trapped, why didn't you explore with him whether there was a safe exit route?
I don't know.
Now, we can, I think, move on from that transcript and go to the control room report, page 52. And go, please, to the call you made at 1:50:49, which we can see on that page. Which we looked at earlier on this morning, Miss Adams. You make a call, it said, on a landline to the mobile phone allocated to Command Unit 8 in order to pass on FSG calls. Do you remember that landline
Yes, I do,
call?
yeah.
You do. Can you tell us why you decided to pass the information on in this way? In other words, on an admin line call.
I think I remember sort of Alex being on the phone to them, and I think she was passing fire survivor guidance calls, and I called across, and at that point she put the phone down. So, because I said to her, "Oh, Alex, I've got a couple more," and she put the phone down and said, "Oh, don't worry, I'll ring them back." And so I phoned them, and I think it was Michael and Pan who was next to me. I think was on a really long call at that time, and I just spoke to him.
Yes.
Seemed the quickest way of getting the information to the fire ground, because the radio was obviously really busy, and we was passing. I believe we was passing FSG calls by landline by that time.
So is the answer to my question that you volunteered to do this because you knew that?
Yeah,
Alex
just
couldn't?
used my initiative. Yeah.
Okay. Now, in your statement, if we can just look quickly at that, back to page 4. You say that in the third paragraph, 3 lines up from the bottom, I did ring the command unit at the scene to pass on details of the flats in trouble based on the calls that I'd taken. Normally they are informed by message, but a call was easier and quicker in the circumstances. At that stage, did you have any concern about radio messages that Sharon Darby was sending not getting through to the command unit?
Not concerned, but I know in the past it's not always easy to contact the fire ground and pass information to them, and it's easier to do it via a phone conversation than on the radio. And obviously Sharon was so busy, and I just remember Alex was passing them anyway by phone, so it just seemed a quicker way of doing it.
Was Alex using the admin landline?
I believe so, yeah.
Right.
She was.
Okay. Now, going back, if we can, to the control report at that page, we can see that you pass a message about floor 16, flat 133, smoke coming in. I'm so sorry, we go back to page 52, which I think we're still on, actually, but if we can have the box underneath this text as well. Just if you highlight the whole thing, thank you. We can see that on this call you pass over to Command Unit 8, flat 133, floor 16. Is that the call which we've just been looking at?
I believe so, yeah.
Yes. Smoke coming in.
Yeah.
We can also see that you pass over a message about flat 182 on the 21st floor. Cannot stop smoke coming through front door, so have gone into living room. Now, one can do this and look back in the report, and we don't necessarily need to, but that's at page 38. It's a call that Pam Jones starts at 1:38:38,
Yeah.
and she's sitting next to you.
Yeah.
Did she ask you, or did she give you this information to pass over to CU8 about
I
flat
asked
182?
her when I phoned them, I was saying, because she was sitting next to me,
Yes.
and I said, Pam, what's your details? And she gave me the information to pass.
Okay.
And she was obviously on a long call. It's obviously a difficult call.
Right.
She was on there so long, so...
I see. Do you know whether Alex Norman, in making earlier admin line calls to speak to the command unit, had asked control room officers for details?
Sorry, if she'd asked...
Control room officers for details?
Don't remember.
Right.
No.
You don't know where she was getting details to pass to the command unit from, like you're doing here?
She probably did, but I didn't hear her. I mean, she probably did.
Okay.
She got information.
And at the moment, when you passed this message about flat 182 to CU8, do you remember whether Pam Jones was still on the phone?
Yeah, she was. I think it was a long call, that one.
Now, when you made this call, did you know, perhaps you don't, did you know that Alex Norman had also been on the phone to CU8 a few minutes earlier, 1:47:44 to be precise?
Well, I believe that was the call that she was, when she was talking to him, that I wanted to add my flat numbers, and then she, as I say, she had just put the phone down, so that's when I decided to phone them. I said, don't worry, I'll ring them.
I follow. Perhaps we can just identify that for the sake of completeness. If you can be asked, please, to go back to page 50 of this same document and look at the call at 01:47:44 that Alex Norman makes to CU8. We looked at this earlier this morning. We can see there the list of flats. Is that the call you're talking about?
I think so.
Right.
Yeah, I think it was.
I see. Now, I want to go back to the call that you do at 1:50:49. So page 52 of this report, just come back to it. And I'd like to show you the transcript for that call as well, please. It's INQ 50203. And you see on the first page of that the time of this call is 01:50:49. We can get that from the second group of numbers from the left this time. You can see that there. So we've got a time mark for that, 01:50:49. And if you go to page page 2, the first page of the actual script, operator, I'm ringing the command unit, 182. Do you know what floor that's on? And then CU8 says, Charlie Uniform 8. And you say, hi, it's control again. Just picking up that very first line in that transcript, you say, I'm ringing the command unit 182 query. Do you know what floor that's on? Who are you speaking to, do you think?
Probably Pam.
Yes. And then Charlie Uniform 8 comes on, hi, it's control again, hello. And you then say, hello, okay, we've got a couple more. Go again, it's flat 133, 16th floor, and 182, 21st. So you cover that information there. Mm-hmm. And then if I can ask you to go to page 3 of the transcript, the next page, you say, a third of the way down the page, sorry, I'm just listening to my colleague. The one on the 21st floor, they can't stop the smoke coming in the front door, so they've gone into the living room now. Just pausing there, is that also information coming from Pam Jones, who's sitting next to you?
Yes.
Right. And then CU8 says, is that the 21st or 23rd? And you say the 21st floor. CU8 says, right, so is that your priority at the moment, 21st? Mm-hmm. Now, I just want to ask you about what you understood by that. What did you think CU8 meant by, is that your priority?
Presumably they're prioritising the calls on the ground.
You say presumably. Did you think at the time that is what they were doing on the ground?
Maybe. I can't say what I remember, but from that there, it looks like they're asking to prioritise calls.
Right. Did you take from that CU8 was expecting the control room to prioritise incoming FSG calls and tell them what the priority was?
No, I think it's probably their decision on the ground as to the information we pass them as to how they prioritise the calls.
Going on, the operator says, to be honest, that's you, my caller wasn't too bad in 133, but I think the one in 182 sounds a bit panicked. She's still on the phone to them. I think the she we've established was Pam Jones.
Yeah.
Right, but the smoke seems heaviest on floor 21. Operator, that's the caller we've got at the moment. Just a couple of points from that. You're giving him a comparison between flat 133 and flat 182. Was your understanding that CU8 wanted a prioritisation only as between those two flats, or more generally?
I think more generally, but
Right.
I can't say
Okay.
exactly.
And then continuing at the bottom of page 3, CU8 says, OK, all right, thank you very much. And then you say at the top of page 4, they're just coming on every floor. So what's she saying? What do you need us to do? It looks like you're talking to two people in that sentence. They're just coming on every floor is intended for CU8. And so what she's saying, is that being asked, are you asking that question of Pam Jones?
I can't remember.
Okay. And then CU8 says, we need to know the area or priority. So because we've got so many, it would be nice to have an idea of priority. Operator, maybe prioritise a little bit, yeah. So ask them what smoke logging is like, how heavy the smoke is. Can you explain to us, did you understand at that stage that you were being asked to prioritise callers on the basis of smoke density?
He asked me that question, but then I'm thinking that they're all a priority. There was just so many coming in, and I thought, what do you do?
Right.
How do you deal with all this? So, and we were taking information. I mean, the operators all had, if you looked at our whiteboard, you can see we was taking in number of people, disabled, children. So we were taking in information anyway. So yeah, and I can remember thinking, oh my God, they're all a priority. There's just so many of them.
So
what do you do?
Yeah. I mean, just looking at this call, he in CU8 is asking you to attempt some kind of prioritisation based on smoke density.
Yeah.
Is that what you understood him to be asking you?
I did, yeah. And I can remember looking around the room and think, I'll try and tell people, but it was just to impart that information with all what was going on was so difficult.
I see.
So I just got back to call taking.
Okay. Having been asked to prioritise on the basis of smoke density, did you tell any of the supervising officers in the control room that is what CU8 had asked for?
I don't think so. I think they was all on the phone, they was all doing stuff. It was just...
Did you think to tell CU8 that his request to prioritise on the basis of smoke density was unrealistic in the circumstances you were now facing?
No, I didn't. I just sort of said yes, I would, but then it was so difficult.
Was there a risk that CU8 had been left with the impression that that was what you were going to do?
Hopefully not, but as I say, there were so many calls and we was passing so many calls that they was dealing with their prioritisation at their end in their own way.
Right. And I think you told us earlier that you'd actually never received any training in how to go about a control room prioritisation. That's right?
Yeah, I think it's more the ground that they'll prioritise the calls on. We can only give them the information. We don't know what's happening at their end.
Now, moving ahead, the next call we see is from you at 2 o'clock and 34 seconds. Can we move in the control room report, please, Ralph, to page 61? and this is a quarter of the way down that page, 020034. CRO Adams phones Command Unit 8 on the team leader mobile number to pass information about calls that have been received, which are summarised in the table below. The Command Unit operator summarises by suggesting that floors 21 to 23 are the most affected, and CRO Adams agrees that they seem to be the most worrying. Now, we'll look at the transcript, I think, in a moment, but just to pick up the precise floor numbers that we can see there.
Yeah.
182, 201, 92, 165 and 194, and some details next to those. If I can ask you please to go to the transcript, it's INQ 50195. Again, just to pick up the time mark of it, page 1, second group of numbers from the left, you can see 020034. So 34 seconds past the hour. And if you go, please, first to page 2, you can see that the conversation starts. Charlie Uniform 8, go ahead. Yeah, the one we reported in flat 182. Sorry, can you repeat that? Yeah, flat 182 on the 21st. On the 21st, flat 182. And then you say, yeah, they're saying that the fire's next door to them and the smoke is just pouring in. We'll just find out how many's in there. How many's there, Pam? 3 children and 2 adults. That's clearly Pam Jones.
It is, yeah.
Yes, and she was still on this call.
She was.
She'd started, I think, at 1:38 to flat 182. That's the first one you cover, and then you go on to the top of page 3. After the command unit officer says, yeah, go on, you say, 1 in flat 201 on the 23rd floor, and it continues down the page, and there's some more details about that. You can see who's in there, 11. And then at the bottom of page 3, you say flat 92 on the 12th floor, and then it continues onto the next page at the bottom, 22nd floor, 194. You can see that there. We can pause there for the purposes of my question. Were these calls that you were telling CU8 about, 95, 194, calls that you had taken?
No.
Did you have a list in front of you or some other basis of information?
Because I'd already rung them on the previous one about the 2 calls that me and Pam were taking. And all the supervisors were so busy, I thought it might be like an idea for me to go around the room and take the flat numbers. So again, I just used my initiative. So I went round to each operator, asked them their flat number and details they could pass, and then I just rung the command unit again.
I see. So in short, you went around the room,
Yeah.
they told you, you wrote it down,
Yeah.
you went back to your desk
And
made
phoned
the
the
call.
command unit.
Right. And you said it was off your own initiative.
It was, yeah.
Right. Was Alex Norman or Debbie Rail aware that you were passing
Probably
messages
not.
on that in that
No,
way?
they were so bogged down with stuff they was
Right.
doing, so it just seemed to be the most expedient way of getting the calls to the ground.
Yeah.
So, no, I just used my own initiative. I wasn't told to.
Did Sharon Darby know that that's what you were doing?
Probably not, no. I mean, she may have heard me going around speaking to people, but I wouldn't have thought so.
Right. Now, was there or did you know that there was the possibility of duplication?
Probably, but it's best to have it twice than not at all.
Okay. I'm just going to pick one example and just cover
Okay.
that with you. Flat 201 is a flat that you are giving CU8 information about. We've seen that on page 3 of the transcript. We can just flip back to that. You can see it. Page 3 of this transcript. You can see at the top of the page, flat 201 on the 23rd floor. I don't suppose you remember who you got that flat number from in the control room?
No, I can't remember.
No. You passed this over on this call, but if we look back to page 58 of the control room report, 58, that's LFB quadruple 04790, you you can see there that under the time mark of 01:59:05, Command Unit 8, reply to radio operator at Brigade Control, go ahead over. Radio operator, that's Sharon Darby, at Brigade Control, then send information about flat 201. Charlie Uniform 8, further call, we have 11 persons and a baby trapped in flat 201, that's flat 201, that's 11 persons and a baby, over. So it looks as if the information that you were sending at just after 2 a.m. by admin line call to CU8 duplicated this radio message.
Yes, it does, yeah.
Did you alert Sharon Darby? Well, first of all, did you know that Sharon Darby had already passed this message over by radio to...
No.
And does it follow then that you didn't say to Sharon, I've done it again, or I've duplicated it?
No.
Okay. Were these calls that you were sending, and I haven't shown you the whole of the transcript, there are others, but we can see the numbers of flats from the control room report that you did pass over. Were you sending them as a priority to CU8, or were these all the information that you had at that point?
That was just the information I had at the time. It was prior to Jason Olive, the station manager, arriving in control, and he took over the role.
Now, going to I want to have the transcript of this call and page 61 of the control report up at the same time, please, for the purposes of my next question. The transcript, page 3. You can see that the transcript is page 3. It's INQ 50195, page 3. If you have both at the same time, you can see that for 201 on page 3, you get the number of persons and their location in the flat, in the bedroom, but you don't say anything about the smoke conditions in there. And indeed, if we look at the summary on page 60 on the left-hand side of the screen, there's nothing in there about smoke conditions. My question is there any reason why you didn't well, first of all, did you have any information about that flat so far as smoke conditions were concerned?
If it doesn't say it, then I probably didn't. But I was speaking to operators as they were still on the line, so they was passing me.
Right.
They're trying to tell me, so I'm quickly jotting it down as they're on the call to the caller.
It is.
So.
Yes. Is there a reason why you didn't ask that control room officer giving you the information about flat 201 what the smoke conditions were like in the flat? No,
it's just literally them trying to speak to me, and I'm quickly writing it down as they're on the call, and just to get the information over to the ground as quick as possible.
Right. And if you look at the information on page 60 of the control room report for flat 165 that you pass over, perhaps it's better to do this off the transcript at the same time. You say on page 4 of the transcript, you can just flip forward one page in it. 165 is something you pick up a third of the way down. I think they're the most worrying. And flat 165 on the 19th. Sorry, can you repeat that? Yeah, flat 165 on the 19th floor, and we've got 2 adults. Flat 165, query, yeah. Flat 165 and 2 adults and a baby, but they're not too bad at the moment. And that information goes across. It's also summarised in the control room report. When you say there to CU8, they're not too bad at the moment, Was that your own assessment of the situation, or is that something that you were told by the control room officer you got this information from?
Must have been from the control operator, because I wouldn't have said that if I didn't have that information.
Right. Now, just a little bit further up the page, at CU8 says, I'm getting the impression, this is a quarter of the way down, I'm getting the impression it's floors 21 and 23, between 21 and 23 are the most severe. And you agree with him, you say, yeah, I think that they're the most worrying. Just on that, at that point, given that what you had learnt about smoke and fire affecting the floors at the top of the building, did you think about the stay put advice that you were giving to other callers?
No, not really. I was still just passing the information, and we hadn't had, again at that point, probably hadn't had the information to tell them to get out. So,
right. Given the clear difficulties with those high floors, did you think to have a discussion with CO8 about whether a cruise could actually get up to those floors at that point, 2 o'clock?
No.
Is there a reason why not?
I think it was just more concentrating on passing the flats and leaving it up to them as to who they went and what their prioritisation was at their end.
Right. Did you think to ask CU8, well, what's happening at the building so that we can work out what advice to give callers in those high floors?
Not at that time. It was pass it as quick as possible,
right,
and then answer calls, because I was still call taking as well.
And you then go on at the end of the call at page 5, if we can look at the transcript. We cover 194, which is Tony Disson, pensioner with heavy smoke there, floor 22. And then 2/3 of the way down the page, you say, yeah, I think I'll be ringing you again in a minute, but I think we're up to date at the moment. Yeah, no problem, all right, cheers. But it's not sounding good. Now, up to date in a minute. Why did you think that you were up to date? Well, let me ask it this way, sorry. Did you think you were up to date at that moment?
At that moment in time, I thought I passed all there was to pass.
Okay. What made you think that?
I don't know, I'd gone around the room, and that's all I assumed at the time.
Okay.
No one was telling me anything different.
Okay. And by telling him, I think I'll be ringing you again in a minute, was that because you were expecting to gather more information from the control room and pass it on?
Yeah, just more flats,
right,
more people trapped.
Did you intend after this call to get up and go round again? And
I probably would have done,
gather
because, as I say, the supervisors were inundated, and I'd already started doing this, so I thought I'd carry on. But then I think the station manager come in and he took over that role.
Right.
So I probably would have gone round again, but depending on the work I was doing at the time.
Now, you said a moment ago that you thought the station manager came in and took over that role. Mm-hmm. At this point, this is just after 2 a.m, had the person you're referring to, you call a station manager, had he come in and started?
I can't remember the timescale.
No. Are you talking about Jason Oliff?
Yeah.
And his whiteboard?
And his whiteboard, yes.
Okay. And had he started that at this point, do you think?
I don't think so, because I think he come in before Adrian Fenton and the others, and I just remember them going over in the corner, because they had to wheel it from one end to the other, and it collapsed as they wheeled it out, because it was broken, and so I don't think it was him. I think it was when the others come in, they pulled the balls out.
So at this point, had you essentially taken over as the point of communication of FSG information from the control room to the command unit?
Not in an official way, but just unofficially, that it just seemed I was doing it at this particular moment in time.
Now, after this admin line call, we see one more admin line call that you make at 2:28 and 27 seconds. Can I ask you please to be shown two things. First of all, page 83 of the control room report, LFB quadruple 04790, page 83. And also have up at the same time, please, the transcript for this call at INQ quintuple 0204, INQ 204. Now, I'll just show you the start of the transcript on page 2. It's 748, and 748 says 748. Control, hello, it's control again. Could you just help us with what 748 is? Is that a number or designation of CU8?
I don't know.
Okay. And then you say, hello, it's control again, so you're ringing it. Hello, control, hi, we've got flat 205. And then you start, and you pass that detailed call over floor 23, and we can see that it's 7 adults. Now, just at that point, is the point of timing. Were you aware at that point that there had already been a message relayed to the control room at 2:23, so 5 minutes or so before, that all FSG calls were to be passed to CU7?
I wasn't, and I don't remember him saying when I phoned CU8 that it was CU7. Otherwise, I would have phoned them.
Can I ask you, please, to be shown the short incident log? That's MET 000013830 at page 22. And look in the middle of that page, please, at 022333. You can see there that Sharon Darby puts out a message which says, key, CU7, run all FSG calls via CU7. At that time, on the night, would you have had access to that message via your vision log?
If I'd have looked in the log, but the log's really difficult to read, and I didn't look at the log at all that night.
Why is the log difficult to read?
There's just so much information on there. It's pages and pages of it.
Is it coming up?
You just keep scrolling through each individual page. It's nothing. It's not easy.
Right. As it comes onto the screen, is it coming onto your screen in live time?
No. You'd have to interrogate the log.
Right. So there's a mechanical question. Is it not therefore possible to be on a call and watch the information going onto the vision log as it comes on?
No. Not if you're taking a call.
So if you wanted to know what messages had gone through the vision log or come onto the system as a result of Sharon Darby inputting a message like that, you would have to interrogate the vision log.
You would.
And how easy is it to do that?
Not easy at all.
What do you have to do?
Just go in, you've got a page this big, and then you just scroll in page after page after page after page.
Right.
Some of it's colour-coded to try and make it stand out a bit. So if it's an informative message, we colour-code it blue. But, as I say, especially on an incident like that, it's just pages of it.
Do you know or recall whether other CROs in the control room were constantly or at all interrogating the vision log to keep up with Sharon's messages?
I wouldn't think so. It was just taking call after call after call.
Okay. Now, can I ask you to look at the transcript? Take that off the screen, the short incident log, and look at the transcript. And I just want to ask you first about something on page 1. You can see on page 2 of the transcript, page 1 of the script, you can see there that the call goes to 748. Were you aware that it was still going to CU8?
Do you want this on the screen? Because it's not there yet.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, just
not
got it.
quite right. Thank you,
Sorry,
Mr. Chairman.
sorry, what was your
my
question?
fault. I've
Sorry.
got ahead of myself a little bit. You can see that in the transcript at the top of page 2 it says 748. Hello, it's Control again. Were you intending to call CU8?
Yes, because I believed he was still dealing
Right.
with the FSG calls. And as I say, he didn't tell me otherwise I'd have instantly dialed CU7.
Now, by this point, was Jason Oliffe in the control room?
Yes, he was.
And did he have his whiteboards up?
They were, yeah. And the reason I called them myself, because I wasn't on a call at the time and Christine was opposite me, and it was an extremely difficult call, and I could just hear her, and I said, would you, and I looked in the corner and they was all busy, and I thought, oh my God, this is so bad, that I said to Christine, shall I phone the command unit and tell them? And so I phoned them myself. I just thought it was quicker, because I was listening to the calls she was taking and passed the information to them, because it sounded so serious.
Yes. Now, Ms Adams, it may be a convenient moment for you to take another short break. Perhaps we should.
Does it suit you?
Yes, a short one. Yes, if that's convenient to you.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll have another short break now.
Thank you.
Please don't talk to anyone about your evidence when you're out of the room. We'll come back at 12:15, please. All right, thank you. Right, 12:15, please. All right. Carry on.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, Mr.
Ms. Adams, thank you for coming back to us. Just a couple of points of clarification arising out of some evidence we've covered already this morning, very briefly. First of all, you said in relation to the admin line call that you made at 1:50:49, remember we talked about that, and you said, and it's just for our record, it's page 67, lines 11 to 20 of the raw transcript, that you said that at that time there was a whiteboard, so you could see that there was taking in number of people, disabled children, so you were taking in information anyway. This is a point of clarification. To the best of your recollection, at 1:50 and at 49, so just afterwards, was the whiteboard already established in the control room, or did that come later?
I can't remember what time it was.
Okay. Next question by way of clarification. When you went round the control room officers before making your call to CU8 at just after 2 o'clock, 2 a.m. and 34 seconds, did you ask those callers about smoke density as CU8 had asked for?
I can't remember, sorry.
Is there a reason why you didn't say to them, I need information about smoke density?
I don't think I did. I think I was just taking the information they was passing me.
Right. What I'm trying to get at, is there a reason why, having been told by CU8 that they wanted you to prioritise on the basis of smoke density, you didn't ask the other CROs to tell you?
I think it was just the difficulty of them being still on the line, and sort of just, I thought the main priority was the flat numbers and the people in there.
Right. Were they all still on the line when you spoke to them?
I think so, yeah.
Right.
I think it was literally, what's your flat number, how many people,
Okay.
and just very brief information.
Right. So is there a reason why you didn't say to them, get them to tell you about smoke density and tell me?
Probably because it was very difficult for them to talk to me and the caller at the same time.
Okay. Now, going back, if I can then, to the transcript of the call we were on just before the break, Miss Adams, which we have in front of us, which is INQ 502204. Just got a couple of more questions on this before we finish it off. At the bottom of the page, page 3, we can see there that you say, three entries up, control, yeah, you telling them to leave, Christine. That's clearly Christine Howson, and you described the circumstances of this particular call just before the break we've just had. And just for our record, that's Christine Howson's call that starts at 02:25:38, page 80 of the control report, which lasts just over 4 minutes. That's for all of our benefit.
Right.
And at the bottom of the page, you then say, okay, hold on, I'll just see if there's any more for you. Any more for the command unit? They're getting out, are they? Yeah, we're trying to persuade them to leave, so I'll leave you with that one and I'll ring you back if there's any more. When you say any more for the command unit, who are you talking to?
I presume I just did a general broadcast to the room as I was on the phone to them, if they had any more. But it wasn't anybody specific.
Right. Did you get a response from anybody?
I can't remember.
Okay.
Probably not.
And when you say they're getting out, are they? Is that a question to Christine?
It was, yeah.
And then you say, yeah, we're trying to persuade them to leave, so I'll leave you with that one and I'll ring you back if there's more. Are you then talking to the command unit?
Yes.
I see. And when you say, yeah, we're trying to persuade them to leave, was that because you had been told now to tell all people to leave, come what may, or was this a decision made by Christine based on what she was being told?
I can't remember. Well, I don't know whether she knew at that time. I think it... And I didn't hear her call. I just heard her end of that call. And I presume that the fire was in their flat and that they needed to leave.
Did you tell Sharon Darby or Jason Oliff that you'd made this communication with CU8?
I didn't know.
Is there a reason why not?
Sharon didn't really need to know because she wasn't passing any calls anyway at that time, because it was all Jason Oliff. And no, it was just they was all busy in the corner. It just seemed irrelevant I'd done that.
Right.
So.
Okay. At this stage, did you get a sense that the officer in CU8 was at the same time talking to Jason Oliff?
I thought Jason was not on the phone at that time, because I think I would have maybe said to him, like, Christine's got a very bad call, but I can't remember.
You can't remember. Okay. Now, I want just to pick up a particular call at around about this time, before coming to the change in stay put advice. This is a call at 2:13:03 from flat 165 on the 19th floor, and this is Nicholas Burton and his wife Pilly. Now, we can pick this up in summary form at page 72 of the control report. That's LFB 4790, page 72. And that's the summary. At 2:13:03, CRO Adams takes a call from a male caller who says he is Nick Burton, reporting that his whole tower block is on fire and he is in flat 165 on the 19th floor. Now, I want to show you the transcript for this, please. This is LFB 50344. And at page 1 of that transcript, we can see the time, second group of numbers from the right, 021303, so 2:13 and 3 seconds. And on page 2 of the transcript, you can see that the call starts, and the caller says, "Oh, hi, this is inaudible from 165 Grenfell Tower. I know you." And you say, 165? Caller, yeah, Grenfell Tower. Our tower block is on fire, yeah. And then he says, "And we're trapped in the 19th floor, but nobody's coming, and the flames next door's getting very close to our windows now, and the smoke's in the houses," over speaking. Now, just at that point where he says we're trapped in the 19th floor, did the use of the word trapped by the caller alert you to the fact that this was now an FSG call?
Possibly, but without seeing the rest of it, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I mean, he's saying he's trapped, so I assume that he just needed some guidance.
Right. Well, we continue. We can see the rest of the call. It runs over 5 pages or so. You go on to say, yeah, what floor are you on? 19. How many of you in there? 2. Me and my wife, something, dog. 2 adults and a dog. Okay, yeah. So are you blocking the smoke from coming in? And it goes on in that vein over page 3. And you say at the bottom of page 3, yeah, we are trying to get to you, but we've got, numerous people trapped in the flats. So, yeah, I understand, top of page 4. We just want to sort of try and assess how bad it is, but are you okay? Is the smoke okay at the moment? And he says, smoke in the whole house. Okay, not bad smoke. But you're okay. We've got the windows just closed. Yeah, and the door, have you blocked the smoke from coming in? Yeah. You put something against the door. Okay, if it gets any worse, top of page 5, ring us back, but we are trying to get to you. That's most of it. I've covered it a bit quickly, but
Yes.
That's most of it.
Yeah.
We can see from page 4, if we just go back to it, that he says a quarter of the way down that page, over speaking, smoke in the whole house. And we can see how the call ends. You say, you check he's okay, and you say that that you're trying to get to them, and he should ring back if it gets any worse. Number of questions. First of all, you don't ask the caller to explain why they think they're trapped. Is there a reason for that?
No, but I think he's explained as the conversation goes on that there's smoke in the house and there's smoke coming from underneath the door, so presumably he's not going to go out in the smoke.
You say presumably. Was that an assumption you made that he was trapped?
Yeah.
Because we can see that you don't explore with him whether he'd actually already tried to get out or what the conditions are outside the flat in the escape routes. Is there a reason why you didn't do that?
No, probably more calls were waiting, and it was literally so many calls coming in that you just was down to taking as brief details as you could to answer another call. He was saying he was safe, so, and hopefully at that time, I think we all believed, all the call takers, that the crews were still going up to him and will get to him all. So I don't think was the time of the call. I don't think we'd had the information to tell them to leave at that point.
2:13 or so.
Yeah, at that point we were still anticipating that the crews would be with them.
Right. Did you have any solid information that crews were getting up there, or was that just an assumption you were making, or expectation?
It's an assumption because we'd had no information to state otherwise.
Is there a reason why, because we can see on this call what you do say, you don't ask him whether either he or his wife or anybody else in well, he or his wife had any mobility problems? Is there any reason why you didn't ask that question?
I don't think that's a general question we ask, and if you asked, if you were saying to someone, can you leave, and they'd tell you anyway, they'd say, well, I'm disabled or whatever.
Right.
They'd offer that information themselves.
But you didn't ask him
No,
whether
I
he could
didn't
leave,
ask.
so you didn't even get to that point.
No.
So you've got a trapped caller and you don't know whether they've been able to leave or can leave, and whether, and if not, why not?
The caller said it's not bad smoke we've got, I believe, there, so I'm just assuming it's not that bad at the moment.
Right.
And other calls may have been more serious, so all I could tell him, we was going to get to him as soon as we could.
Right.
Ring us back if it gets worse.
Right. Did you form a view about how safe it was for this caller to stay in their flat?
No, and also they're there. They need to make their own choices as well as to what they feel safe or not safe. So...
Did you give the details of this call to Jason Olive, do you think?
I can't remember. I thought I wrote all my calls down and passed them, but I can't.
Right.
I hope I did.
At this stage, how were you recording the calls and passing them?
Oh, he was writing on a piece of paper.
And then how did that piece of paper get to Jason Olive at the whiteboard?
You walked up to him and gave it to him.
Right. Given the policy we've looked at before, is there a reason why you didn't at least explore the possibility with this caller of whether he and his wife could leave?
I can't remember.
Is there
I can't say.
Right, I'm just pressing you a bit on this, I'm afraid, but is there a reason why you didn't?
I can only assume the volume of calls that were coming in, and when they're saying that it's not too bad a smoke, that they're safer than some of the other callers that were, the calls waiting to be answered.
Right.
I think the thing we didn't have on Grenfell night was the luxury of time to give to callers, and we've all got to live with that. We was having to not spend as much time as we normally would, and we was just adjusting it to the conditions of the room, and it was just horrendous. So we was just trying to get through as many calls as possible to pass those flat numbers to the crews on the scene for them to go and rescue them, and in some cases that didn't work out.
Now, we looked at it earlier, but you'll remember that the definition of a fire survival guidance call is where the operator stays on the line until the call is cleared or the caller is rescued. We could see that doesn't happen with this call, even though the caller says he's trapped. Yeah. Can you explain why you didn't stay on the line with this caller?
You're just having to make decisions as to whether you let people go And you just judge it, I think, on the person, how vulnerable they were. I don't know. It's decisions I hope I never have to make again, but we did on that night.
Did you feel, and this is a point to ask the question as good as any, as points go, but looking at this particular example, did you feel at that time that your many years of experience and the training that you'd had equipped you properly to deal with this call?
I don't think you'd ever be fully equipped to deal with those calls. That particular night. If it was a different occasion, you'd give that person all the time in the world. You'd have someone listening to you while you're dealing with it. We'd be passing information to the ground, but not on that night.
And you say not on that night because?
Yeah, because it was overwhelming. There was only 7 call takers dealing with all those calls coming in, and we just did our best for them.
We now turn to a different topic, which is the change in the advice. Mm-hmm. Now, you cover this on page 4 of your witness statement. We can go back and look at that. At the top of page... bottom of page 4 and over to the top of page 5, you say, at around 2:30 to 2:45 a.m, I remember being told in person by our operations manager, Alexandra Norman, that the advice to callers had changed and was now to get people out and self-rescue. She told us all CROs going round the desks, this is not normal policy and is really alien to me, as it has never happened before. All of a sudden I was telling people to get out of the building, giving them advice to find the nearest staircase, asking them if they can get out. I didn't know how many staircases there were in that building, but could only advise and reassure any callers. Mm-hmm. Now, first of all, time frame, you've given as 2:30 to 2:45 a.m. When you made this statement, how did you come to recall that as the time frame, 2:30 to 2:45 a.m?
I can't recall. It just seemed around that sort of time scale.
Okay. Do you remember how Alex Norman relayed that information to you? You say it was in person.
Yeah, she stood in front of me. She had a piece of paper with instructions written down. As you just said, wet towels, wet sheets, and tell them to leave. And I can recall distinctly saying to her, all floors. And she just said, all floors.
Right.
And then you were just trying to get your head round that one minute you're telling people to stay, we're going to come to you, and the next minute you've got to get out and leave.
So just breaking that down a bit, she showed you some written instructions, did she?
It was on a piece of paper, but
Right.
she verbally said it.
Okay.
It was the verbal thing that I remember.
And you then asked her all floors.
I did, yeah.
Is there a reason why you asked that question?
Because it was incomprehensible that we was telling everyone on every floor to suddenly get out. We weren't going to make it. It was just,
Right.
yeah, unprecedented.
Did you say you didn't know how many staircases there were in the building?
No.
Would that have helped you?
Well, I was only given that advice because I thought, will they know which way to turn? But I learned afterwards there was only one staircase.
Right.
So, because if you're going out into a smoke-filled corridor, you know, it's just which way you're going to go. Where is your nearest exit? But obviously that wasn't relevant because they only had one.
When Alex Norman gave you these instructions, did she give you a clear impression of how to give that advice? In other words, what terms or tone to use with callers?
No, she couldn't do that.
Did she leave you with the impression that you were still able to give the callers some kind of choice, or did she make it clear to you that this was essentially a live or die instruction?
Yeah, a live or die.
The latter.
That's the impression I got from the advice she gave me.
After you had that instruction, and in those terms from Alex Norman. Did you start applying that advice straight away?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. I'm just going to look at one or two calls with you to see if we can pin this down a bit more. The first one is page 91 to 92 of the control report. This is at 2:37 exactly, bottom of that page. CRO Adams takes a call from a female caller in flat 193 on the 22nd floor who is reporting that a lot of smoke is coming into the flat and she's blocked up the door. And we'll look at the transcript of that. It's probably easier to do it. It's LFB 50366. And again, you can see the time in the second group of numbers from the right at 02:37:00, so 2:37 exactly. And at the top of page 2, it says, Fire Brigade, caller 1, yes, inaudible, 22nd floor in 193 Grenfell Tower. We can see the fire. What flat number are you? 193 on the 22nd floor. The 22nd, sorry, flat number again. It's the 22nd floor, 193. 193 on the 22nd floor. Just pausing there, is there a reason why you keep having to ask?
Just to confirm I've got the right number and the right floor.
Right.
Because sometimes you can easily mishear.
And then towards the bottom of the page, you say, okay, and what's happening now? Is there smoke coming in or a fire? And the caller says, there is smoke coming in a lot. And then you say at the bottom of the page, have you tried blocking it off? Have you put towels against the door? At that stage, did you understand that these callers were trapped?
From that, it sounds like they can't get out. Yes.
Yeah. And then it continues on to page 3, and you go through the numbers in the flat, 8 adults, and then the caller says, can the helicopter please take us, please? And then you just say, so is it 8 adults? No, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, adults and 3 children. 3 children, yeah. How many adults? This is page 4. I've got asthma, very bad asthma. Okay, we're trying to get to you. What's happening in your house? And then I'm just going to run through the rest of the call, picking up some parts of it. But at page 5, you say at the top, yeah, I understand that, and we're trying to get to you as soon as possible. We're going to tell the firemen where you are. Looking at that, do you think that this was at a time before or after you'd had the instructions from Alex Norman to tell callers on all floors to leave?
I think that'd be before. That may have been my last call I took before I got the instruction.
So when...
Because I think I would have said, you've got to leave, or attempt to leave.
Okay. So when we see on page 4, and here again at the top of page 5, we are trying to get to you as soon as possible, was that based on any information that you'd had from the incident ground, or was that again the assumption or expectation that you had?
My expectation we would.
Right. Listening to what was going on in the control room at that stage, could you hear colleagues now giving get-out advice?
No.
Then the next, Then the next question is: you're told by this caller that there are children in the flat, and that the caller herself has got asthma, very bad asthma. Is that information that you passed over to Jason Olive?
I don't think so. Probably just the number of people.
And going on with the call to the end, we can take this quite quickly. It's quite clear what's happening. You say at page 5, a quarter of the way down, just after the part I showed you, okay, look, I'm going to go now because we've got lots of calls coming in. I'm going to tell them where you are, and you just try and keep yourself safe. Try and stop the smoke coming in. Go to a room that's the least smoking and all stay together. We'll get to you as soon as we can. Okay, okay. Ring us back if it starts catching fire in your house. Mm-hmm. Is there a reason why you said, I'm going to go, because we've got lots of calls coming in, and not stayed on the line helping them?
Again, the volume of calls. It's just the sheer amount of calls that were waiting to be answered.
Okay.
But from that, I think that wasn't... I couldn't have known on that call that the instruction had changed.
Okay.
I think it was probably that last call I took before I
Right.
started telling people to leave.
Now you say in the middle of page 5, all right, ring us back if it starts catching fire in your house.
Yeah.
What difference would it have made?
I don't know. It's just things you say at the time. I mean, obviously, if they would have attempted to leave if the fire was in their flat, hopefully, on their own accord, but it would just be further information for us. And if we was still in the hope that we was going to reach them, that we would prioritise that call, but
Now,
that wasn't to be.
at 2:43,
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
I'm all right, it's okay.
you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
At 2:43:55, so not very long after this call, you this call is at 2:37, and so this is a few minutes after this call. At 2:43:55, you take another call from the same flat, and this is LFB 50376. And just for the note, it's page 98 of the control report, but we don't need to see it. We'll look at the transcript. 376, LFB 376. And again, you can see the time of this from the second group of numbers on the right at the top, 2:43:55. And it starts on page 2 of the transcript. Fire brigade, hello, fire brigade. And a third of the way down it says, yeah, what flat number are you? This is you. Caller, 22nd floor, what flat number? 193. So this is the same flat, same floor as the call you've just taken, which we've just looked at. And you say, okay, what's happening now? Is the fire coming into your flat? Who? Is the fire in your flat, or is it just smoke? It's just next door, it's next door. What about your flat? Over the page, it'll be in a minute in my flat. Okay, so can you get out if the fire starts coming in? Now, that's the first time I think we see you actually asking or exploring exit routes with the caller in this flat because of the possible proximity of fire. Can you explain why you did it at that point and not at an earlier point when you were told that there was smoke coming in, a lot of smoke?
I think... Well, I'm asking her, can you get out if the fire starts coming in? So... but why I'm asking on this one, I don't know.
No.
Maybe because things were intensifying and just the number of volume of calls we was having. I don't know, it's hard to say.
Right. And then we can see you're asked about a helicopter, and you say, I'm sorry, we don't have any helicopters, I'm sorry. So it's flat 193, 22nd floor, you've got 8 people. And then you ask, can you get out at all? And you're told it's full of smoke. The fire from the other side is over our building. And you say, okay, but is the fire in the corridor? And it continues in that vein. And you do explore exit routes, as we can see. And on page 4, you say, 2/3 of the way down, okay, well, we're trying to get to you, but it's very difficult. So what I'm saying to you is if it gets very, very bad, you need to get yourself out of those flats, get all your 8 people out, cover yourself with wet towels, wet sheets, anything, and try to get out, okay? All right? I'm going to leave you now. You make the decision whether you think you need to leave or not, all right? Now, looking at what you're telling them at that stage, do you think that was before or after Alex Norman had given you the instruction?
I can't honestly remember.
Do you
I would think maybe after, but I can't remember.
Do you think that it was consistent with what Alex Norman had told you to tell them?
Without knowing if it was before or after, I can't honestly say.
Right. Well, let me see if I can get at this a slightly different way.
I mean, I don't know. If they're saying they're trapped and they can't leave, then... But I'm telling them, advising them, I suppose, to cover themselves, and get out. So I assume we'd been given the instruction.
When you say at the end, if it gets very, very bad, you need to get out, and then again, you make the decision whether you need to leave or not. It looks from the terms of that you're giving them a choice and making them make the assessment. My question is that what you understood from the instruction that Alex Norman had given you?
No, I think it was to tell them to leave. Maybe I wasn't very clear on that one, but I can't remember. So yeah, I mean, and it's always their choice. I mean, they're there, they're seeing it, they know what's on the other side of the door, they know what's in their flat, so I'm just on the end of the phone just trying to help them.
I mean, did you understand Alex Norman's instructions
Yeah,
that you could
understand,
live?
Yeah.
Did you understand them to mean that you could leave the caller with a sense of choice? Or did you understand the instruction that come what may, these callers needed to understand that they had no choice and had to leave?
Yeah, I believe I did understand that, but I don't know if it come across on that call very well.
Can you explain why you didn't give them the advice in uncompromising terms?
No, I can't.
Okay.
Hopefully I did better on the others.
All right. Flat 182, 21st floor, at 246. This is transcript LFB 50379. We can do it on the transcript, but for our reference, again, this is page 100 of the control room report. 246.42, I'm sorry, I said 41. You can see that from the top of that page. And if we go to the start of the call, page 2, hello, fire brigade, I'm stuck in my house. Okay, are you in Grenfell Tower? Yeah, flat 182. Okay, is it just smoke or is it fire? There are 5 of us. What floor are you on? 21st. Right. What you need to do now is get yourself out of the building. I can't. So you need to cover yourself up. I can't. Okay, you flat 182. And the advice continues over the page on page 3. You saying, you need, so a third of the way down, you need to get out. Okay, we can't. Okay, we're advising people now to try and leave the building. Okay. So at that point, and this is 246, so only a minute or two after the end of the last call, you're now telling 182, in very clear terms, it seems from this, that they have to leave. Did anything change between the last call and this call?
I don't know. I don't know whether that was the first call I took where following that instruction or the last call. I honestly can't remember.
Okay.
But that one's very clearly, I'm saying to them, you've got to leave. So that seems more likely that it's the first call to tell them to leave. But
well, we have the timings. The one we looked at was 2:43, and this is 2:46. But you recall it differently.
yeah, maybe this was the first call, and I honestly can't remember. I'm sorry.
Now, going to the end of the call, we can see that you say in the third from the end part, try and get yourself out of the building. Get wet towels, wet sheets, anything. Try and get out of the building. As you leave your flat, think where the nearest staircase is and head for it and run. All right. Okay, I'm going to have to leave you. Sorry, we've got so many calls coming in. Just try and get out of the building. When the call ends, hello, I'm going to go now. Try and get out of the building, okay? Just try and get out. I've got to leave you. I'm sorry, I've got to go. Why did you end the call so quickly?
Again, it was just the volume of calls coming in, the amount of calls that needed to be answered, and the other people that may have been calling that needed to be given that advice to leave.
Right.
It just didn't have the luxury of time with these people. It's just appalling.
Did you think that this caller would be able to self-evacuate without your assistance or guidance?
I don't know.
Did you
I
think
couldn't
about
make that
that?
judgment.
Did you think about that?
I was thinking that it was just dreadful that you just had to leave them and just answer another call.
just one or two further questions. Can I ask you to go back to your statement at page 5, please? You say in the second paragraph on that page that on page 5 in the second paragraph, you describe how the television wasn't put on because the supervisors didn't want to upset you, summarising. General questions. When you're working at the Merton control room, are you used to having the television on?
Yeah, it's on 24/7.
Would you have a downlink from an NPAS helicopter if one was there?
We should have, but it's not been working for years.
It's not been working for years? Or in Merton?
Yeah.
What about Stratford?
I think it used to work there. Well, not at Stratford, it doesn't work. I think in our previous control room at GVP, I think we had a link, but it's never worked at the lock. Not in our control anyway,
Right.
or at Stratford.
Have you ever used it when it did work?
Not me
help you?
specifically, but I believe it's helpful for the fire ground, like when you have a major fire, but not for us in control. We've not particularly used it.
Would you in the past have been able to use what was on the television if it was on to assist you giving advice to callers?
On Riot Night, when London was burning, we were seeing the vision of in Croydon, Reeves Corner. We was watching that sort of fire occur. So it is always good, in my view, to have an awareness of what's happening.
Right.
But never specifically on other calls. It's never that major that it appears on the television anyway.
Yeah.
I'm sure on this night, I don't know what time it started being screened, but I think it would have maybe been helpful for us to see it. It was a shock when I first saw the image of it.
Would having either or both of television and a heli-telly downlink have assisted you in being able to give advice to callers?
No, because we can't make that decision as call takers. We would still need specific instructions to tell people to leave if that was the case. So, but it's just an awareness. So we might have, when they are telling us that the fire's on the top floors, you could see they really do mean it's on the top floors. And knowledge is always just good. The more knowledge you have, it's always helpful.
Miss Adams, I've come to the end of my questions I have to ask you. What I normally do is to ask the chairman to rise for a few minutes just to make sure that I've covered everything I need to cover with you. So I'm going to ask him to do that. Mr. Chairman?
Yes, well, we'll have a short break while counsel checks whether there are any other questions he needs to ask. Again, please don't talk to anyone about your evidence while you're out of the room. And we'll come back in 5 minutes or as soon as you can, as soon as you're ready.
Yes, thank you, Mr.
Yes?
Chairman.
Right, can I give the ushers, please? Mr. Millett, if I say 1 o'clock or sooner if possible.
Yes.
All right? Thank you. Right, Mr. Adams, I suspect one or two questions.
Yes, without being specific about number. First of all, Miss Adams, can I just go back to the TV heli-telly we were discussing just before we finished? Would having the television on in the control room at Stratford that night, or having the heli-telly downlink working, would it not at least have given you a visual impression of the speed and extent of external fire and smoke spread around this building?
Yeah, possibly.
Would that not have assisted you in then being able to judge what kind of advice you were giving to individual callers?
We would still have to go by the guidelines of stay put and unless advised otherwise.
Right.
We couldn't just say off our own backs sort of thing, get out now.
But, assuming that stay put hadn't been changed, to use an overall expression,
Yeah.
so that you were still in, as it were, stay put territory,
Yeah.
would it not have assisted you, though, to be able to advise callers on whether they should be assessing the ease with which they could get out more closely?
Possibly. It's very hard to say as an afterthought, yeah.
And I know it's difficult, but would it have assisted you in pressing CU8 for them to tell you what the conditions were like inside the stairs or inside the building?
Again, possibly, but it's so difficult to say. I mean, I assumed like we was getting that information, like because Jason Olive had an open line to them.
Yes.
So I sort of assumed they would be updating Jason, but
Yeah. Did there come a time? I mean, we've covered the night up to about 2:50 now, but did there come a time when you became aware that firefighters were not able to get to upper floors of the building?
only when Alex told us, stood in front of us, and then when the policy changed,
Right.
then I was thinking, you know, and she said all floors, so I assumed that we wasn't going to get to anybody.
I see. Anybody at all?
Yeah.
Not
all
just the upper
floors.
floors?
Well, yeah, all floors. But I think later on, and I don't know what the timescale was, but I believe there was a mention of they're not getting above. It was either the 11th or the 15th floor. But I couldn't give you any timescale on that, and it was just something I heard in the room.
I see. Thank you. Now, just one or two just further questions about specific calls. We looked at the call at 2:46:42, 182, where you give very unequivocal advice, you need to get out. Mm-hmm. And we looked at the call at 2:43, where you say, you need to make the decision whether you need to leave or not. Is there a reason why you weren't able to call that caller back, the one that called at 2:43, and say, you need to leave?
Just the amount of calls coming in, and you'd have to find that call amongst that hundreds of calls that was coming in. So it was impossible, really. And all the calls that were waiting to be answered, to tell them to get out.
Now, finally, can I just ask you to look at something we haven't looked at before, which is a call at 2:49:20, LFB 50381. It's a short call. And you can see the timing of that call at the top again, 2:49:20. And it starts, fire brigade, there's flames coming out of the top of the roof, darling, come and get me. I know, can you get yourself? I can see the flames coming down my flat, darling. Right, can you get out of the building? No, I can't see a thing. Why can't you leave? Because it's too dark. I don't. Darling, I'm 67 years of age, I can't be running. Are you on your own? Yes, I'm on my own. Okay, we're advising, what floor are you on? Oh my, the times I've told everyone. 22nd, please, love. Right, we're advising, listen to me, we're advising people to leave the building. And then he says, it don't take an hour. Something, okay, something again. I can see the flames, come and get me. And then, come and get me, operator. We're trying to get to you, but it's very difficult, so you may have to leave the building yourself. You need to cover yourself with wet towels, wet sheets. Something, has he cleared? Okay, thanks. Now, I've shown you the whole of that call because it's short. Did you realise that you'd already spoken to him?
I can't say.
Okay.
I can't remember.
When he said, I can't be running, I'm 67 years of age, I can't be running, what did you understand by that?
That he was having difficulty leaving.
Do you remember how the call ended? You give him the advice, but then there's something happens and it ends. Do you have any recollection of how the call ends?
If it says there, has he cleared, I think he must have put the phone down.
Right.
Because I must be talking to the BT operator. He left the call.
Right. You say, just before the end of the call, we are trying to get to you. Again, was there any solid basis for that, or was that your expectation?
No, I think that was just thinking of something to say to someone who's telling you they can't leave, just to give them a little bit of hope.
Right.
But I think I was trying to stress that he needs to go.
Because by this stage, you had it very clear in your mind that there were no firefighters that could get into the building at all. So the question is, given that knowledge at this point, why did you say to him, we're trying to get to you?
Just again, because he's saying he can't leave, so what do you say to someone who can't leave?
Did you, when the call ended, did you think that this caller had understood that his only chance of surviving was to try to leave?
I don't know, because he's obviously cleared the line, so I don't know what he thought.
Do you remember what you did with this information after this call?
No, I think possibly we wasn't still passing information to Jason to pass, because it seemed that it was just, that was our remit, to tell everyone to leave the building. So, and if they could get to them, they would. So.
Okay. Thank you. Well, Miss Adams, thank you very much. I've come to the end of the questions I'm going to ask you about, and I'm very grateful to you for your patience and for coming to the inquiry today to help us with our investigations. We are extremely grateful to you.
Thank you.
So thank you very much.
And I'd like to add my thanks to those of Mr. Millett. It's very important to us to understand how the control room was working that evening and what went on in some detail. So we're really grateful for your help in coming to tell us what your part was. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now you're free to go, so the usher will look after you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, that must be a convenient moment, Mr. Millett.
It is.
Right, we'll break now and resume at 2:10, please. Thank you.